everywhere the Iranian dictators look, they see growing resistance at home, opposition abroad, and decay from within. This Iranian regime is like a rotting porch that still maintains its shape and form, but is weak and hollowed out and only awaits a sudden gust of wind that will bring it crashing down. I think all of us here can sense that this moment is rapidly approaching, that the hope in this room and in rooms like this across the world is palpable. And the more hopeful we are, the more fearful must be the criminal gang that has tortured the Iranian people for so long. Freedom and justice walk hand in hand. Freedom for the Iranian people means justice for the Iranian dictators. And we can all sense that that day is coming soon, and so can they. You've all worked so long and so hard for that day. And it wouldn't surprise me if it comes before the annual return of this season of hope next year. And then we can add to hope the joy of liberation. Next year, that celebration won't be in rooms like this around the world. It will be in the streets of Tehran and in town squares across all of liberated Iran. With the resolute opposition of the people of Iran, supported by the diaspora of Iranian expatriates and free people around the world, and under the banner of the National Council of Resistance in Iran, I believe that Iran will soon shake off its shackles, bring its tormentors to justice, restore democracy and freedom, and resume its historic legacy as in the days of old. As Madam Rajavi has said, the NCRI's objective is not to seize power, but to restore it to its rightful owners, the people of Iran.
For 28 years, we've been looking forward to the day when the mullahs are out and democracy is in. And that is why the National Council of Resistance of Iran and the Organization of Iranian American Communities has worked so hard to bring freedom to the people of Iran. And never has it been so close. For decades, we saw that the regime controlled a powerful army, that it had a Revolutionary Guard Corps, that it had an alliance like this with another government, namely that of Syria. And just in the last week, we have seen Assad tour his new dacha outside of Moscow.
So I'm here tonight to condemn the regime in Iran. I'm here tonight to condemn the Shah in Iran and his dictatorship of oppression, his dictatorship inside Iran, and I want to support all Iranians who want freedom and a free and democratic Iran. I support all of you. And not only will we support freedom in Iran, we will put an end to the proxy wars of Iran. We are done. America is done with Iran. So tonight, as we all stand together, members of both parties across the spectrum, the message that emerges is one of solidarity and one of hope.
And that means that it's more important than ever that we stand with the Iranian people and support them in their struggle for freedom. That's why I was so proud to be a co-sponsor of House resolution, the bipartisan resolution that condemns Iranian state-sponsored terror and expresses Congress's support for the people of Iran protesting on behalf of democracy. And this resolution has 243 bipartisan co-sponsors, which is more than half of Congress. I look forward to growing those numbers even more in the 119th Congress and sending an even stronger message to the people of Iran that they are not alone and that we are with them.
And this is the message we must carry to Iran. The Iranian people are capable of so many great things, except for they're stuck with the Iranian government. Iran itself should be the wealthiest country in that part of the world, I would think. But it's not solely because they are being held back by a rogue regime. My hopes and prayers are that one of these years, one of these Decembers when you come to Congress, that we are celebrating a new Iran, and you one more time, Iran in the Middle East, will return to the jewel that it has been so much in history.
But what's important is that we stand together with you and want a regime change. That we not only will talk about that, but we will insist on it. And America's foreign policy will not just speak with that voice, but speak with our friends and neighbors. We will speak around the world. We will speak, our new UN representative will speak in New York City about the need for regime change because, in fact, they are brutal thugs to their own people. So please know this as you come, during not just this holiday season, but as you gather together, you have done the spade work that is necessary by meeting with members. You have taken time for the last all 26 years that I've been a member of Congress to tell your story, to expect that we would listen and that we would respond accordingly.
We shouldn't be kowtowing to a country that's trying to become a nuclear power and actually subjugate its own people, to threaten the rest of the world, to export terrorism and weapons all over the world. Shame on us for standing by. It's time to come from a position of strength. Peace through strength. The Iranian regime only understands one thing, and that's power. And this regime needs to be overthrown by all means necessary.
I hear the cheers of freedom. I hear the sounds of victory for Iran. And I'm grateful to be here in your long-standing friendship, standing beside her, fighting with her for your freedom, for the freedom of the people of Iran. Gratitude, I'm here with the Organization of Iranian American Communities. Your movement has always inspired hope and resilience. It's why my mother worked tirelessly with you and for you. It amplifies the voices of those that cannot be heard, and you remind the world of the importance of standing up for human rights and liberty.
I am very pleased to announce that Congresswoman Zoe Lofgren has agreed to step in as the Democratic co-chair of the Iran Congressional Women's Caucus. So allow me to read her message for you. I regret very much that I cannot be with you. I am required to be in a Democratic Steering and Policy Committee at this time. Thank you for your persistent advocacy. Together, we will one day see an Iran that is democratic, secular, free, and non-nuclear. Congresswoman Zoe Lofgren from California.
The 6 points that Madam Rajavi outlined. We are asking for the international community to support the Iranian people's efforts by politically and morally support the Iranian people and their organized resistance. What happened in Syria was essentially a revolution where the people of Syria overthrew a dictatorial regime. What was in front of them was the lack of political support for the opposition and was, in fact, complete engagement with the ruling regime in Syria. When that political support was withdrawn, when active military support for the regime was withdrawn, that regime, as Madam Rajavi mentioned, melted into oblivion. Iran is not necessarily any different. Iranian resistance have an organized opposition movement. The resistance units in Iran are capable. What they are missing is the political support from the free world. What they're missing is for the regime to be held accountable in the global arena for its behavior, for its leaders to be held accountable in the International Criminal Court, that it be kicked out of the UN.
According to the NCRI, National Council of Resistance of Iran's platform, the process for transferring power after the regime's overthrow consists of very clear delineated steps. One is the establishment of a provisional government, as she stated, which will be in power for a maximum of about 6 months. And the primary responsibility of this provisional body will be to organize elections for a constituent assembly. Once the constituent assembly is formed, the provisional government will step down, marking the completion of the NCRI's mission. Sovereignty will then be transferred to the people's representative in the Constituent Assembly. These representatives will appoint a new government for a 2-year term to draft, approve, and hold a referendum on the Constitution of the new republic. This structured approach ensures that, with a viable alternative in place, there will be no room for chaos or further bloodshed. Millions of Iranians abroad, equipped with their expertise, resources, support, will return to Iran. Regarding the international community, the focal element of its policy toward Iran should be recognizing the right of the Iranian people to initiate change and acknowledging the decisive role of the organized resistance.
We've all been attacked by the regime in some form or another. We've lost loved ones to the regime or its proxies. Their media campaigns have slandered and divided us. They've tried to undermine our elections. It isn't enough for the regime to terrorize its own people. They've exported their terror to us and our allies. The fall of Assad marks the beginning of an end of the regime's rule. This is as sensitive a time for the regime as it is for all of us, which is why we cannot afford to give them a sliver of hope to continue their tyranny and terrorism.
Earlier today, Maryam Rajavi highlighted several key outcomes of Assad's fall, and I think it'd just be important to reiterate those. The new reality is the deintegration of Khomeini's forces. Due to internal and regional crisis, the regime's failure to meet the basic needs of people, and the growing popular disconnect, the fall of Assad has several key outcomes. One, the collapse of Syria's dictatorship highlights the extreme weakness of the Iranian regime and the IRGC.
In recognition of the new geopolitical realities, lessons learned from the pace of change that we just witnessed in Syria, and the weakening of Tehran's regime, both domestically and regionally, we argue that the United States formally should engage and align with a legitimate and independent alternative like the National Council of Resistance of Iran. The NCRI has shown steadfast commitment to a democratic Iran and has the organizational structure, integrity, and the international credibility to lead during the transitional period of democracy.